And we are good to go, man. Just speak nice and loud.
Sure thing. Hey, how you doing? Round two. For the people who came here early, I was attempting to converse with them, and it didn't go so well. Okay, now I'm curious, since we have everybody here. Who's an INTJ? Myers-Briggs? Do you know your... No? All right.
We're all here from Myers-Briggs, just a scam to make a bunch of money for some psychologists.
Probably so. Supposedly we're engineers or administrators or coders and things like that. All right. So my name's Brent Sainer. Go by BTS, Square Root, a bunch of other things. I'm here for Project Free. The name has changed because I need to put this up. Oh, all right. I need to put this up on our mirror, and I decided it was probably a bad idea to have fucking the NSA in a publicly presented manner. So I have disclaimers for you. I'm not a lawyer, and neither are you. Most of you. Is Alex in here? Alex is a lawyer. I don't see him here. Good. Alright, so any information presented is not legal advice because I'm not an attorney. I'm not encouraging you to do anything expressly illicit. You know the drill, right? We've been to these things before. I have done research. I don't know all of it. You may stump me. I consider it a compliment if you do. And I'm not here as an official representative of the project. I just do a lot of work with it. So I tend to have a pretty intimate understanding of it. And I'm usually the one that gets shunted into talking for these public kind of things. That said, so why the hell, why on earth would we want to build a mesh network? Why does this thing exist? I'll get more into actually what it is in a second, but why do we need it? I mean, mesh networks are cool, right? They're fun. We like playing around with them. How many of y'all have actually played with a mesh network before? Yeah. Oh, that's not bad. It's like a quarter, third. All right, and you can't trust upstream. The nice thing about mesh networks is they build a private backbone, right? So we don't need to go out to the ISPs for transmitting data for, let's say, your neighbor or people across the block or whatever. Information should be free, which is a big tenet of this project. So you get the Libra, aspect of it. You get the keeping data open, keeping data accessible, and it should also be free-ish in the other sense. The monetary sense, free as in beer. It's what good is free data if it's not able to be spread, right? And people are pretty hard on money these days, so it's really something to consider that without a means of conveying this information between other people, without that being able to pay for that kind of carrier service, you're kind of shit out of luck. Pardon my language, I cuss a lot, sorry.
No fucking problem.
There you go, all right, thank you. We also wanted to do community building, right? It's hard to do a mesh network without any sort of, without interaction from people, right? You've got rooftops. I don't own all the rooftops, so we need to talk to these people who have these rooftops so we can do, hey, can we put this piece of hardware on your roof? What does it do? So between neighbors, we've got a lot of technical people involved in the project, and it takes, we're building it out in Philly to start. So we've got a pretty sizable tech community in Philly. We've got High 76. We've got a fair amount of makers. We've got I think we have a promo group. So we're not New York or the Bay Area or anything like that by any means, but we need to have a place for these people where they can convene, and then we also want to connect them with people who may not be so technically oriented. I just mentioned, make lots of makers in the area, and we also want to maybe kind of spread things out a little bit. How many people know their ISP caps for their home connection? All right. Do you use all of it? and you're hackers. You know, like you don't use all of it, and you'd be the people who would use it the most. So there's plenty of room for growth. Imagine someone you know, just down the street who just checks Facebook all day long. They're using a fraction of their monthly allotment. So we want to maybe see that put to better use. So let's talk about what a mesh network actually is, for those who don't know. You may have heard the term tossed around, whatever. I came up with this bullshit definition like 3 hours before POSCON. It's a multiple node, multiple AP VLAN served over the 802.11x spectrum. What the hell does that actually mean? Pragmatically, it's more of like a spider web with water droplets, which each water droplet is a node, you know, a repeater or a gateway or what have you. Except there's no web and there's no spider, so it's basically pure wireless, right? It's just if you can imagine how torrents work, it's like that but with an actual wireless connection rather than the actual passing of data. It's this pure connection kind of thing. So we've got 5 W's we need to talk about. Who? Pretty much anyone. I mean, we've got hackers, we've got artists, we've got all sorts of things. Like the really importance of the project is we need to bring everyone together. You know, it's not only this technical thing we're building, but it's a community. You know, we want to be inclusive and include like women and other races. You know, like it's the minorities that may not typically get involved with the tech project. We want to see them involved. We want them to have a creative outlet. We want them to have a constructive outlet and things like that. So we try and make sure there's a spot for everyone. So like for artists, we've got we're working on posters and stickers and things like that. You know, plenty of places for them to get involved, which is great. What is it? We just talked about this. It's a mesh network and it's a community building effort at the same time. It's sort of to make that connection, you know, data resources available to everyone. Where is it? We started in the Kensington neighborhood of Philadelphia. If you've ever been to Philadelphia, I would highly suggest you don't go to Kensington. It's a pretty rough area, but we intentionally chose it there because that's where the economic disparity is going to be. That's where the people who can't afford an ISP subscription are going to be. So that's where we're starting off at. We just recently, not yet, the 11th is our 15th. I don't know. I thought it was the 11th. Coming maybe sometime this week. We actually have a space at the Fairmount, right between the Fairmount and Poplar neighborhoods, right by Broad. So we've got that going as well. We got ourselves a little hackerspace there. We're gonna put up some wallpaper, put up some paint, you know, make it pretty, but also continually develop this sort of hardware that we can have it permanently housed at a location. So we're pretty excited about that. We also plan to extend outward from Philly. I mean, I'm sitting here in like Delaware. Like, why is this relevant to Delaware? You know, why is it BSides Delaware? We want to spread along the East Coast. You know, I hope to hit. I think I talked about this in a second, actually. Yeah, I hope to hit the Jersey border within the next 5 years. It's kind of a little bit too easy if we want to cheat, if we want to use like long backhauls or anything like that. But hopefully, I want to see it organically grow to Jersey within 5 years. And to me, that'd be a good growth metric. If we follow that metric, we could probably make it to Maryland, maybe 10 years, 12 years, something like that. Just gradually growing out from Philly, from that little Kensington spot. Why? Well, I kind of already talked about this too, so I'm just gonna go on. So this is a pop vision antenna. Dude, aside from Jim, who knows what pop vision is/was? We got 2 hands. Awesome. Fantastic. They are no longer around. Before there was cable and satellite TV, they were kind of doing their own thing. Chile was really late to the game in terms of cable television. So this company, Pop Vision, kind of ran their own little satellite system for these cable connections, which is well great. And then everybody got cable hookups and Comcast moved their asses in and all that stuff. But the antennas are still up. They never collected their own hardware, so they are sitting there on top of houses everywhere, all over. I'd say there's like I usually see 5 with like right along the street on one block, depending on the neighborhood. They're all over, and they have no use, you know, to anyone else but us. You know, they're no real scrap value, but they're antennas. They're pre-assembled, and they're 2.5 or 2.4. They're close enough where we can use them for a wireless backbone, which is great. You know, I mean, we've got all these antennas we can repurpose, which is sort of the main goal of the project. So why is all this relevant? You came here to talk about fucking over the NSA, right? Right? Show of hands.
I want to make sweet love.
Oh, what's your name? I'm sorry. What's that?
I want to make sweet love.
Sweet. Okay. All right. We'll make gentle love. I'm sorry. Show of hands again. What's your name? Did we get that? Okay. Okay. So anyways, I do want to make this clear. I probably should have put this on my disclaimer. I'm not un-American by any means. I think we've got a great country. I think we can do better, though. You know, and I think that the agencies that we have in place are, at the end of the day, well-meaning, but they're doing a really shitty job. You know, they're just horrible in terms of implementation. And it leads to some instances where they may be abusing their power and not even know it. I forget who the quote's attributed to, but there's a saying where it's easier to explain the actions of leadership or government or authorities as incompetence rather than malignance. And I really think that's true of our government, you know. Great country, one of those looks good on paper things, not so good in implementation. So right now, you're probably wondering, okay, so how do we screw them over? I can't give your money back to this conference, so, you know, I'm broke. I can't do that. But this is where it actually starts to get relevant. This is why you started to come into this talk. I need to get all that bullshit out of the way. How am I doing on time? I'm doing pretty good. All right, so I need to get all that explanation out of the way so we can kind of leapfrog into this, if you will. Okay, so let's talk about Prism. Does anybody know what Prism is? Why aren't all your hands up? One, two, 3, 4. Okay. No, seriously, like just lift your arm. One arm if you know. Oh, thank fuck. Okay. Give me a heart attack. All right. For those that didn't raise your hands, Prism is the NSA's infrastructure that actually captures your traffic. You know, phone calls, web traffic, things like that. It just kind of collates it basically at the end of the day. This is a stupid oversimplification. All of this is very oversimplified. It's a very complex system. I'm not going to go into the specifics of it. But you can read about the specifics of it right on Wikipedia. They've got some of the leaked slides from Snowden. You know, they've got a lot of really good information on it, and it's too much information for me to actually reproduce here. So hopefully you'll do that on your own time. Just look it up. You'll be if you didn't know what it is already, you'll be horrified. Don't tell your grandma. So basically, at the end of the day, very stupid simple. Like explain to like a brand new system in what the hell it is. It's mirrored switchboards with data capture. That's basically what it is. You know, I cannot stress how oversimplified that explanation is. But that's the purpose it's doing, right? It's kind of just sitting there silently gathering data and recording it, archiving it, and so on and so forth. So who can they investigate? Legally, according to the policies written in place, who can they investigate? Well, thankfully this crowd probably has a better chance. At PumpCon, it's a little bit more of a rough crowd. So everybody there would have been fucked. The 3 degrees of incarceration, as I like to call it. You can, if someone is a prime target for, say, terrorism, because that's their stated purpose of investigating. If someone's a prime target of that, if you are 3 degrees separated from them, they can investigate you fully, which is kind of, it's a big deal. You know, if you work with someone who's under investigation, that's 1 degree of separation. They can investigate you, no problem. They can investigate your parents if you work for someone being investigated. You see the problem here? It's a never-ending problem. I think by that model, that's like My exponential math is off, but I feel like that would be maybe 3/4 of the United States based on one case. So it's pretty intense. You've all played like 6 degrees of separation, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, the older crowd might. So it's the same concept, you know, where you've got these naturally organic meshes of people. They can investigate 3 links into that. That's an astounding number of people based on one person. So I guess just be careful who you make friends with. So technically wise, you know, like if the policy was not there, assuming they're following the policy, who can they actually investigate? All of us. So if it goes over a U.S. backbone, a U.S. telco, they can investigate us. Interesting fact, a lot of Canadian traffic goes through U.S. telco and backbone. A lot of Mexican traffic. A lot of European traffic goes through us. And a lot of times it just takes the cheapest route, you know? So, so they have access to a lot of information there. A lot of information. Probably 7/8 of the globe's net traffic goes through us. So there's a big, don't quote me on that, because I don't know how exact that is, but that's, judging by the numbers and what I vaguely remember, that's about accurate. There's an astounding amount of data that goes through us, is what I'm trying to say. And they have technical access to all of that. There's no technical limitations in place, because at the end of the day, all these ISPs, all these providers and carriers, they didn't put up any resistance. You know, they don't want to get sued by the government. You know, who would want that? You lose money. So what actually is the NSA? You know, the group of people that has access to PRISM, right? So we might think it's a little bit like this, or, you know, maybe it's not really, you know, we kind of attribute paranormal attributes to them. They're superhuman, or they're demonic, you know, they've got some kind of clandestine group going on. But really, it's probably closer to this. You know, they're just a bunch of old dudes in suits sitting at their computers, you know. Granted, they do have some contracted developers, contracted sysadmins, and things like that, which they fired recently. What was it, 90, 99% of them? 98%? It was in the 90s after Snowden. Oh my gosh! You don't fire like 90+% of your sysadmin staff because there's been a breach. Because there will be more breaches as a result of that. Oh, that's horrible. All right, so PRISM, as I mentioned, you know, it's this machine, I mean, you know, if we want to use that terminology, it's this machine that actually gathers the data. So it's less like this. Name the movie? Thank you. All right. That makes me happy. I don't feel as old now. It's more like this. You know, it's just hardware and software. Granted, you know, it's a fair amount, but it's hardware and software. That's not actually part of PRISM. That's just stock images. I would love to have physical access to PRISM, but I don't. So this will have to suffice. So in summary of all that, the NSA is just, at the end of the day, it's just people, you know, just like us. They're skilled and incompetent. They have their weak points, they have their strong points, and so on and so forth. They're not supernatural. They're not omniscient, they're not omnipotent, they're not malignant. They're just incompetent. And they don't know a better way of doing what they want to do. And they think the same thing about us. They think we're geniuses, you know, or we're, I can tell you right now, like, I admire Snowden for what he did. I respect that we actually have people believing us now, that we say you need to worry about this instead of us appearing like tinfoil hat wearing freaks. But he's human at the end of the day, you know, and they were making it, the way they saw that breach was probably, oh, like, how could this have happened? Like, he's some kind of super force. No, he's just a dude. He's just a dude that was in the right place in the right time. Or the wrong place in the wrong time, depending on how you want to look at it. And PRISM is just hardware and software. You know, it's just machines running shit. That's all it is. This, like, it's this, but I mean, scale, you know, to a fairly large size. But it's not some digital dragon. You know, it's not this mythical being we don't know a lot about the actual specifics of it, that doesn't mean we don't know what it actually is. You know, we may not know how it runs precisely. We may not know, I don't even fucking know what operating system it runs. I'm guessing some kind of scale BSD or Linux, some Unix type. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, it's not this mythical thing. It's hardware and software. Literally, that's all it is. They don't have some guru sitting there with like a "Hello, my name is Prism" name tag, you know, just spouting off this thing. So if you understand how data works, you can understand how to maybe circumvent that. And it's definitely not the sci-fi supercomputing like you see in hackers. It's not this grand scale, you know, like holographic displays or maybe what we see on CSI. It's just a lot of storaging and processing. I mean, a lot of storaging and process power. I really wish I had physical specs on it because I would love to see how they manage the actual processing power. I just want to know how it works. But I mean, that's what it is. It's just a big ass cluster with multiple locations based, you know, just pop right into the ISPs, the backbones, and things like that. So, so that brings my project back in. Specifically, we're a Philly-based mesh network, as decentralized as we can get it, technically and politically. I have a big problem with authority figures. So we run on a meritocracy where if you know how to do something, you do it. You know, it's really not that big a deal. Granted, there is some, like I have root keys on a lot of our infrastructure because I set them up, but it's like, as soon as I build a relationship with other people that I know are competent, meritocracy, you know, I'm giving them root keys. You know, so it's really like this never-ending kind of process procedure of knowing who you're involved with. And we're volunteer/community driven. And the way we structure our actual mesh is we've got basically 3 types of devices. We've got gateways, which are hops out to the internet, you know, the wide area network. We've got nodes, which are just dumb repeaters. But we've got supernodes. Supernodes are pretty awesome. Supernodes are basically a building or collective or whatever of people that maintain the region's nodes and such like that. They plan out the wireless topography, you know, so they decide where the node would best go next. They serve as sort of an info center for the project. So they've got a lot of responsibilities, but they've also got a lot of visibility in the project as well. So usually hacker spaces, like Hive 76 is our first super node. We're still kind of gearing them up for that, but we're all excited about that. But that's what the sort of purpose of super nodes is, to kind of bring that human element in. So again, how exactly does this play into Prism and the NSA and all that? Well, what we basically have now is a guerrilla wireless ISP. You know, we've got nodes all along the city that don't go upstream but still provide a service. And there is no hop over the WAN unless you decide to go to an address or a data source that is actually only accessible over the WAN. Facebook, Google, all that other bullshit. So we've got a citywide LAN, which is pretty awesome, right? I think it's they call it like an MLAN, metropolitan LAN, something like that. I've only seen it used like once. So just to reiterate, Prism only has access to what you hop over your gateway, your modem, you know, what you send upstream at the ISP. That's where they are. They're at the ISPs. So they don't have access to your home network. Because, you know, we've got gateways and firewalls and things like that. Granted, there's backdoors and things like that. That's a little bit out of scope. You should always know what's running on your routers. Always, you know. So that's an entirely different talk. But you should keep that in mind. So what this actually means is we have a citywide wireless LAN that doesn't go upstream at all, unless you need to go upstream for your bullshit social media, your Twitters and all that, to where the Prism junctions actually are, which means we're totally out of Prism, which is great, right? We've got a way of, it's a LAN. You can run anything on the LAN. You can run a website, a server, you know, web server. You can run a file sharing, You know, whatever you want. You know, and that's the beauty of it. You've still got free access to all this data. And since it's a mesh, it's inherently very fault resistant. So let's say someone gets subpoenaed, or you know, their node gets taken for court evidence. Good luck. I don't log anything on the devices, but let's suppose they do that. The mesh is kind of self-healing. It'll find the nearest route around that missing node, which is great. I mean, that's where mesh networks really shine. So if there was some talk a little bit back about the internet shut-off button or lever or whatever you want to call it. If that somehow does become a thing, we still have that massive citywide LAN, you know? And without, like, investigating every home, you're not really going to be able to tell where the actual APs are exactly. I mean, you can make some educated guesses, but you don't really know where they're being hosted, which is fine by me. All this does have some inherent issues. We need to know how to secure it from the inside. You know, we want to know how to protect the people who use the network and things like that, because, I mean, we would never do anything bad, right? We would be just absolute angels on this wide open mesh network with 8 open APs into it, and we would never do anything harmful to that. I would. But, you know, we kind of maybe would. So this is where the meritocracy and security professionals comes back in. That's all y'all, you know, some of y'all at least. So we're very location agnostic. We may be located in Philly physically, and that's where our deployment is. But I mean, I've got all of our firmware sources up on Git. You know, I want to build it out and document it so other cities can do the same. Maybe even link some cities down the road. You know, who knows? But we want to make this accessible for other locations. It's not just a Philly thing, despite the spelling with PH. But whatever. So yeah, like I said, I've got all that up on git.freewifi.org. Still working on pushing some more data and finalizing the supernode server images and things like that. But they'll be up to, you know, so we're trying to keep it as open as possible. I'm a big proponent of open audit, you know, so the more open your sources are and your infrastructure is, the easier it's going to be to find things that should be fixed with said infrastructure and sources. So actually, I was hoping maybe some of you could help me out here. I'll have contact information at the end, but we're about 75 to 80% near where we can mass deploy this. I mean, like, turn a node up in like 2 minutes, pop it out, drop it on a roof, you know, done. Days up, a node's up in a day or less. I have most of the infrastructure in place. I need some people to maybe make it look prettier. Do we have any web devs? Have you seen our website? It's horrible. Freewifi.org. I shit you not, it uses an ASCII logo right now. Guess who set it up? Guess it's not aesthetically centered at all. So we definitely need some artists and web developers and things like that to make our stuff more pretty, make the data more accessible. Again, you know, make data about us more accessible, I should say. And so on and so forth. I talked about the freenet, the wireless LAN a little bit. It runs its own internal DNS, so we can run our own top-level domains. It runs its own XMPP Jabber services, so we've got communication in place. Lots of goodies on that wireless LAN, that citywide wireless LAN, you know. So we've got communication channels open and things like that in the event of a natural disaster or things like that. It's not just circumvention and all that. It does also serve a purpose for natural disasters and things like that. You may have noticed that guy. That's running 2 minor versions off, I think, from the firmware up on Git. But hopefully you've been hammering it. I haven't checked my console yet, but I don't see anyone with their laptop. All right, I see one guy. All right, so everyone, maybe just take like, how much time do we have? 20 minutes, I think. I'm gonna pop into Q&A in a second, but while I'm doing that, I want y'all to hit it as hard as you can. You went to wireless CTF? You know how to You know the basics of it? Just hit it as hard as you can. This is an open invitation. I'm reflashing this anyways. Don't worry about it. If you get root, I'll buy you dinner. How's that sound? Or a drink, whatever. Okay, so there's some contact information. Any questions? Oh geez. Sorry.
I think it was back in 2005, 2006. I was actually looking at networking with mesh networks at the time. The issue, of course, then we were with B, maybe G if we were really lucky. But the biggest problem we had, of course, is that every time you go through a hop, you're reducing the amount of bandwidth available and latency. At the time, the mesh network software that we were looking at also did SSL encryption from the node to the gateway. Are you dealing with anything along those lines?
Oh man, here's where you get to hear my to-do. So my to-do is about 5 pages long, but one of the items is to incorporate DJB DNS into the firmware. So that'll definitely take care of that encryption aspect. I can't run any kind of like anonymizer like Tor. It's too much for the little boxes. You know, we'll just fry after 5 connections. So it's very much. I saw one here.
Oh yeah, well, a couple questions. One was, what hardware are you currently running this on? You may have mentioned before.
Yeah, the nodes and the gateways are TP-Link WR1043NDs. We used to have that memorized. I've given it a talk for a while.
How expensive are these apart?
$40.
That's not too bad. Now, how many do you have to cover like a couple square miles? I mean, how far away apart are they? Can they be and still have decent coverage?
It all depends on your antennas and how much power and how much juice you put into them.
Have you ever looked into people with ham licenses?
Yes.
I'm standing with 802.11g.
Every talk I give, someone brings it up. It's a really cool idea. Unfortunately, we would
More
need
power.
Yeah. If you're not ham licensed, I'm probably going to do it in a month or two. You should look into it. You can do a lot of awesome stuff with the ham license. Yeah, I looked into it. We would need a licensed op at every node, which kind of eats into that accessibility thing. Also, there's some kind of general discussion about the legal ramifications of running like DJB DNS and all that, because there's restrictions on what kind of traffic can be encrypted on that HSMN. Somebody might correct me. I think it's like HSMN is how you do that. But yeah, there's like certain restrictions on that as well. So yes.
So you mentioned Tor, not running Tor on the
not running Tor.
Have you looked into using some stuff that's a little more lightweight? There's a new tech called the Dining Cryptographer Nets, DC Nets.
I had it.
Called Descent.
I'll certainly check into it. I'm certainly open to this.
The code's up on GitHub. And,
oh, cool.
If you want to track down where, like, it's called Descent, and there was a paper about it using security a few months ago.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, they're a lot more lightweight.
Thank goodness, because I mean, the hardware is really not the best, but it does its job. Any other questions? None? Okay, there you go.
What do you do to prevent a rogue node from joining your network?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. If they want to join it, that's fine. We are going to be thinking about how we can have like a registered list. Obviously, we can't use MAC addresses because it's stupid easy to spoof. I was thinking probably something along the lines of like SSL certificates, and just having them signed. But the bad thing about that is you need to connect to get the SSL certificate, and it kind of opens you up for other worries. But yeah, it's something we're thinking about. It. If anybody has a great solution, I'd love to hear it. But we don't have anything solid yet.
Is that the only hardware run on, or would it run on like small computers?
The firmware I built, the actual collection of I've got like Nmap and TCP dump and stuff on that firmware image. The firmware I built specifically for that hardware. I'm gonna flesh it out so we can use more models. We use Batman Advanced as the actual mesh protocol. So if you get familiar with that, that's that's now mainstreamed into the Linux kernel as of like 2.6.26 or something. It's been there for a while, you know. So yeah, if you've got like a Linux laptop or desktop or whatever, you can just join right in and access the node. So, any other questions? No.
Are there traffic shaping concerns?
I have quality of service in place. It's not active yet in the firmware, but you know I do have that in place. That's actually why I asked about the caps. So we keep a very locked down database of information about people who run the nodes, and what part of that information is what ISP they're on and what LAN, so we know where to cap that quota at. So if they're acting as a gateway rather than just a node, if they're acting as a gateway, once they hit like, I don't know, 80%, you know, of their cap, it'll just kill that gateway connection and it'll just act as a repeater after that. That's pretty easy to do. I just haven't gotten around to it because my to-dos.
You got like 15 minutes to keep going.
15 minutes? All right. Come on. Someone ask me a really long question. Really tough one. Come on, guys. Yes. All right. Go.
So this has to be a concept for people running 4x nodes and anybody running non-like nodes. You have a liability of stuff leaving your upstream doing that. So you either log it to try to defend yourself that was my access that was coming out of this network, or you don't log it because that's kind of the concept of this.
Thankfully, it gets tricky because someone can very easily prove that we know what the hell we're doing. But there's legal precedent where someone ran an OpenAP and someone did some pretty nefarious things on their network. Like we're not like attacks, we're not like child porn. So it's pretty serious stuff, which I definitely approve of. I don't want to do that on my network, you know. But they were running an OpenAP and they had no idea this person was doing this through their wireless. So then they even brought to court because their name was on the the ISP contract and all that. And they obviously said, you know, I had no idea this was going on, you know. They were exonerated from that because they claim in like ignorance, you know. That's why a lot of ISPs nowadays just set you up at least with web when they do the wireless install to kind of like cover their asses from that legal action and all that bullshit. We all know how easy web is to break. So it doesn't really do a whole lot, but I mean, there's precedent, and we at least stand a chance of the legal defense if there's precedent. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a worry for all of us. But I intentionally don't. The DHCP leases only last like 2 hours, you know, on these devices intentionally. I don't log it intentionally. You know, I don't want. I kind of wrote it with plausible deniability in mind. But you know, nowadays with the way the law enforcement system is working these days, you know, I could probably get away with that like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Nowadays, they might say, all right, why are you even implementing plausible deniability? You know, like why does that even exist? I don't know. We'll have to see. We haven't gotten any lawsuits yet. But you know, here's hoping we never do. Any other questions? Yes.
What do you log and how long do you retain it?
What do we log? I log the gateway's public ISP IP. I log. I don't make this public. You know, I keep this all under wraps and I scrub it every so often. This is mostly just for operational use. I log all the nodes VPN back to a NOC for that region. That logs. I don't really log anything at all on the actual devices. It's all being done NOC side, and that's mostly just for facilitating, like pushing out firmware updates and things like that automatically. That's really all it is. Not really a whole lot of. You're not going to get a whole lot of data if you sub email. But you know, I'm going to audit it like at least once a month. So hopefully I don't gather anything that'll be incriminating. But what can you do? Any other questions? That's a great question. Fuck yous? so here's a great thing. Because of how it's structured, they really have no way of, unless they like create a social profile of you, of your traffic and your browsing patterns, they have no way of knowing who's using that thing. You know? Yeah. So they don't know what's happening. It becomes turned off at the cap. I actually talked to like Comcast reviews, Verizon reviews. I've got some great contacts. They're friends, man. It's great. But I talked to them like off the record, and they said, really, as long as it's not sending out bulk mail, hopefully it won't. As long as it's not like DDoSing, if it's not hitting the cap, the monthly quota, they really don't care. They really don't care how it's used. Their terms of services differently. It's a gray kind of wording, but yeah, I mean, really, at the end of the day, they don't know. They won't know if it's happening. So, sorry to any Comcast or Verizon reps. I think they're doing a great job, but yeah. You said it, I didn't. Any other questions?
Is currently hosting any hidden services?
No, we only have one gateway app. So that's.
Internal to the network?
I'm sorry.
Internal to the network?
No, not yet. I'm still building all that out. I've got like spec sheets for it and everything planned out, but I want to get a new update to the firmware pushed, and then I'm gonna start working on building it out. Really, I'm kind of waiting on our hackerspace to come together first. This is why I need more system admins and more firmware developers and things like that. Because right now I'm doing a lot of it. I saw it over here.
You mentioned the VPN backhaul. How are you distributing those keys securely when you do a crypto update every 30 days? You do that out of band, you would physically...
The Git firmware, which is stripped of the private keys, the Git firmware by default has like a vanilla VPN home, OpenVPN, just VPN's back in, so I know when it's dropped in place, and then I generate the keys on a separate server, and then push the new keys and set up the new VPN over that VPN. Gets a little risky because if I don't do it right and I reboot the device, I just bummed it. But any other questions? Oh, guys, come on.
Are you looking to scroll this out from Philadelphia, or would you rather have other nodes in different locations and try to meet nodes in place?
I don't really care. I don't care how we do it. Like we're gonna have like supernode. I saw it. We're gonna have like supernodes. I want to get a supernode each zip code, or at the very least in like each Philly neighborhood, which is fairly sizable, But like one every zip code would be perfect. And really, it's up to them if they want to just hop in, start a supernode there, and then kind of reach out to the closest one, or if one supernode wants to try and reach out and then they foster a new supernode growth, I really don't care how it happens. I just want to see that. I'm not concerned with specifics. INTJ! Current theme. All right, yes.
How would you plan on connecting another city?
VPN points.
Yeah, VPN. But
VPN, but the thing is, if we're worried about snooping at the ISP level, you kind of have to use an ISP to get between.
Yeah, but if you have a decent VPN and modern keys, modern crypto, and assuming that someone else fucked up the implementation.
Yeah. But yeah,
I'm just thinking lots of cantennas.
Like
lots and lots of cantennas.
We actually we're thinking about how to get across like the Wissahickon, Schuylkill and everything. There's some really cool like optical like LED antennas. Basically, they go crazy long distance, very small amount of power. Really awesome stuff. Cheap to build, but we're not there yet. Our antenna guy isn't here. I got to find out where he is. He's not here. It'd be great if we could talk a little bit about that. But yeah. I mean, we've got keys in place. It all depends on where the next hop's going to be and what kind of antenna we need to get on top. All right. Any more questions?
Last question.
Oh.
How many nodes in the network right now?
I've got one gateway. I've got the dev node. We've got 3 other nodes besides that. So it's pretty small, but it's still development. I don't want to I don't want us to do like the knock on doors. Hey, can we put this on your roof? You know, I don't want us to do that yet because my infrastructure can't support that. It almost can. That's the 75–80%. It almost can, but it can't quite yet. So once I hit that, probably the next 2 to 3 months, we're gonna start growing it out rapidly. Post on the growth stage.
Oh, I was just something silly. Never mind.
Something silly. I love silly questions.
You ask you any question, I said, what's best in life, Conan?
What's what?
What's best in life, Conan?
Oh, I feel like that's a reference I'm not getting.
Yeah.
Conan O'Brien? What's best in life?
Yeah.
Cheeseburgers. Definitely cheeseburgers.
That will work.
Okay. Any more? Thought I saw a hand. No? Yeah.
Are you accepting volunteers?
I
to help
am.
out?
I am. Please contact me for one of the various meetings you see here. Doesn't matter if you don't live in Philly. I don't care if you don't live in PA. I don't care if you don't live in the States. You know, we just want to get people involved, and we want to make other cities. We want to empower other cities to do the same. So yeah, by any means, if you're good at anything, we'll find a use for you. So I really appreciate that, of course. Anything else? No? Ready to get out of here? All right, good, because I need a drink. It's 3:15. I think I was going till 3:20. 5 minutes, that's not too bad. All right, so it's been Project Free. I'm Brent. Thanks for coming. Did anyone get rude?